Welcome to the most incredible marketing show ever. The show where each week a panel of respected marketing strategists, all trained and certified by the legendary Dan Kennedy, share their wisdom, experience, strategies, and insights on how to use Dan Kennedy's philosophy on business and marketing in any type of business, and that you can apply to your business immediately. Here's your host, Craig Valine.
There you go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the most incredible marketing show ever. I'm your host, Craig Valine, and I'm with my expert panel of Dan Kennedy certified independent business advisors. We have a new panelist today, Owen Garrett, who just finally let us know he was an independent business advisor, so he's on this episode. Welcome, Garrett. Owen Garrett. Listen, this subject this month is targeting Dan Kennedy's book, No BS Wealth Attraction in the New Economy. And it's one of my favorite books. And what we're going to talk about today is a wealth magnet. But before we get started, let me tell you what the book's about. So Dan says that this book is not about making money. It's not a book about creating wealth. Both words, making and creating, reinforce what he calls the work-money link. And that's a limiting idea that we will change in this episode. And it's a chain we'll break in this month's episodes. But words like make and create suggest that you obtain wealth only through and in proportion to effort exerted. These words imply that wealth comes primarily, if not only, through hard work and through extreme exertion. This book and the following 4 episodes are about attraction of wealth. And Dan says he uses this word deliberately to make yourself magnetic to money. So we'll be focusing on 4 different wealth magnets this month, beginning with wealth magnet number 8, be somebody. So in short, be a famous somebody to your ideal clients. And Dan says, like it or not, we live in a celebrity-obsessed culture, a celebrity-driven marketplace. And so Owen Garrett happens to be in the book. And so, Owen, tell us about the power of celebrity. Why is that important to entrepreneurs?
Well, in the majorative sense, Dan's right. And I know it's right because I did everything Dan said. And I even roped in Dan to help unknowingly. And so we can get into this in more detail later. But I'm an artist, full-time 28 years, I guess. And I've been into Dan's stuff since the mid-'90s. And back when you could buy his books at Office Depot. And I was so young back then, I didn't know enough not to question anything. Okay, I'll do this. AB offers, great. All that stuff. And I came across this book. The first version would have been 04, 05 maybe. And he talked about celebrities. And I thought, that makes sense to me. We'll get into that. But what I did was, Gene Simmons was speaking at the Super Conference. That would be 07, I think. 08. And I made it. Was it 08? Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was the Marketer of the Year competition that I didn't win. But Gene Simmons was speaking, and I thought, like, it made sense to me to the power of celebrity. So I did a portrait of Gene Simmons, and I carried it around the Super Conference. And when I saw him, I pounced on him and I gave it to him, and my buddy Troy White had the camera, and he was embarrassed beyond belief. And I have a 2-minute clip of me presenting a work of art to Gene Simmons, who was gracious, and I patronizingly clapped him on the back and said, "Thanks, Gene." But I had it, and the darndest thing happened. My mother-in-law saw that and went, "You must be getting pretty good then." About the same as I was the day before, Connie, but thanks. And so then I went to Dan and Bill and I said, "Look, you buying these guys gifts. Why don't we have a little exchange of privilege here?" And that's how come I was on stage for over 24 celebrities, handing them drawings of themselves. And it was nothing I'd ever done myself, with the possible exception of newsletters, but that's a different show, has moved the needle so much. because the what happens when people see your smiling face with some celebrity is some version of, well, I've never heard of this Owen Garrett guy, but he must be pretty good. and that's kind of it in a nutshell. And we will flesh that out any number of ways.
Yeah, that's great. You became a celebrity by associating yourself with celebrities, by drawing their art, their face. Anyway, so Richelle, I know being well known in target market is important. You do $1 million partnerships. Talk to us how you teach your clients to be known in the marketplace.
Well, truthfully, as Owen was talking about, like, just you have to be somebody, or else nobody wants to partner with you, right? If you're just a low-level guy, who wants to partner with that guy? So one of the things that I learned from Dan is when I used to introduce myself, I used to say, hey, my name is Richelle. I own this telephone company. Right. After I heard his be somebody, then I did a little research and I found out that I was the only female, that I was the only female African-American to own a public utility company. So that now, no matter what, like, my friends are like, oh my God, here she goes again. But when I introduce myself, I say, hi, my name is Richelle Shaw, and for many years I was the only female African-American public utility owner in the nation, right? I had to become somebody so that they would be like, oh, because just me saying that I owned a telephone company, people went, oh, okay. But I created that celebrity, right? When Dan first taught it, it was 2007. And it was the day that there was a small little uprising in the universe, and some things had busted through, and a war was created, right? And when you turned on the news, nobody talked about the war. They only talked about the fact that Britney Spears had shaved her head. And Dan said, well, ain't that something? As only Dan can say, right? And he goes, so look what made the flipping news. Marketing is about being in the front. Okay, that's my bad Dan Kennedy impression. But it is celebrity leads us. And if you don't get that in your business and become that local hero and dominate there, you will lose and leave money on the table. So I teach people to become that celebrity in your own little industry, right? All the things that even like my friend Steve Sipress has, the WOW strategy, right? It's because he named himself. Yeah. My client is the court king. Now he's the pickleball king. He gets picked up on every news channel. Anytime there's a pickleball story, he's the expert to come and talk about it. That's free stuff for his business all day long. But everybody on this panel uses that celebrity tie-in. It ain't just me.
Yeah. Mark, you are involved with helping people build their authority. Talk about just one of the tools that best position someone as an authority.
Sure. And I would say it's all kinds of publishing, whether it's audio, video, books in print. And, because at the end of the day, being somebody and that celebrity, it's really just a shortcut. We're in a market that's starved for attention, so you need to grab attention. And the easiest way to do it, the shortcut, is being known for something and being famous in your category. So that's the shortcut. In 1981, I was in 8th grade, and I learned this lesson unknowingly, because we used to go to the roller rink, and the guy that got all the girls at the roller rink was the DJ up in the booth. So I said, okay, I got to be that guy. So that led me to the quest to be the DJ. Okay. And so I became the DJ. And by high school, I was like, okay, now this DJ thing is kind of taken off. And they're sort of dime a dozen now. Every block had tons of DJs. So I'm like, how do I stand out from them? Well, in the 80s, drum machines and computerized music and MIDI systems were starting to become accessible. So I went in the studio with some other DJ colleagues of mine, and I discovered how to create the music. So we were programming drum machines, and I started House Nation Records in 1985. Had my first record I released on a local label called DJ International. So here's some weird history. If you Google my name and house music, you'll see I was one of the pioneers of the Chicago house music movement. Well, what that did for me by just creating a record where nobody else knew how to do it, was like a mystery to everybody. For me, it was a fun little hobby that I was playing with, But now I leapfrogged over all the other DJs that wanted the club gigs and the DJ gigs and the parties around here, because I was the guy whose record was on the radio being played in all the clubs. And now all my buddies were tagging along with me. And by the way, does that lead into meeting more girls? Yes. So I've taken that whole lesson from 1981, like, to the business world, which the business version of that 12-inch dance record, which was vinyl, that shit was heavy, it is a book. And so publishing books and figuring out what you want to be known for has been like my go-to, and one of my favorite things that I believe all clients should start with. So I hope I explained that okay, Craig.
Yeah. It's one tool, one good thing, and the word author is in the word authority, so it's so that makes sense. Dan Cricks, how can a local Main Street entrepreneur, small business person get well known in their community?
I'm glad you asked, Craig. So when I mention that to clients, they get really intimidated. And the first thing is, I'm not a celebrity. I can't be a celebrity. So what I try to teach them and help them to do is to connect themselves to a celebrity and be where that celebrity is. So I'll give you one example of doing that. And I had an opportunity to get interviewed on camera by Joe Theismann. And for those who may be listening and aren't familiar, he's a legendary Super Bowl winning quarterback, NFL quarterback. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that was my target audience of repair shop owners, a huge percentage of them are football fans. And so that immediately gave me some celebrity and credibility. And during the interview, he pumped me up pretty good. And so instead of me just trying to create my own celebrity, I attached to someone else. And so that's what I try to get my clients to do. Find a celebrity if you can't do it, or like Richelle said, make yourself a celebrity. So one of the things that I did, I had one of my biggest competitors in the auto repair niche had never been in that business, and I had. So during an event that I had, we were getting some ahas and what have you from attendees, and one of them said, Dan is a guy who's been there and done that, so he gets us. Well, I jumped all over that and took on the moniker of the been there, done that repair shop marketing guru. It really irritated my competitor because he couldn't claim that, okay? And it gave me a way to kind of stand out, and that gave me some celebrity because there were a lot of people who would refer to me that way. After I started using it, I just said that's who I am, and then that's how they would refer to me. So it worked out really, really well. And so, especially for small business, local people, that's what I try to get them to do, is find a way to get celebrity, maybe by attaching themselves to someone. And I'll give you one more example of how I did that. At the Gene Simmons event that Owen mentioned, I was there. I got a picture with Gene. We talked for, how long do we get, guys? About 15 seconds. And I took that picture and used it as my Facebook profile picture. And I grew my friends, followers, from a little over 600 to over 2,500. And at one point, I was targeting local TV personalities and radio personalities. Well, when I would do a friend request, once they saw my picture with Gene Simmons, they all accepted my friend request. And I had an opening to them. And there was a lot of people who accepted my friend request who didn't know who I was, but they saw I knew Gene Simmons, so I must be somebody. And I could tell them, yeah, I was able to talk to Gene. Even though it was 15 seconds, I didn't need to give those details. But the fun part of it was I had people who messaged me and said, hey, Kiss is in town. Can you get me a backstage pass? And that's how much it caught. So if you can't see yourself as a celebrity or feel like it's not something you can do, attach yourself to a celebrity. And a lot of times you can get local celebrities to do things for you fairly inexpensively. A lot of people don't realize that. And so that's how I work with my clients to get that celebrity attachment or become a celebrity.
Thanks, Dan. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsor.
This episode of The Most Incredible Marketing Show Ever is sponsored by Mike Capuzzi. Discover a strategy that transforms everyday business owners into trusted experts using the power of having your own book. Turn into a published author without the traditional publishing hassle. Read Mike's new book, The Ultimate Competitive Edge, for free at mainstreetauthor.com/edge. That's mainstreetauthor.com/edge. Now, back to the show.
All right. So, funny, Dan, I was on the plane with Gene Simmons from LA to Chattanooga or to Tennessee. And I tried to get his attention. All the girls, the women in the area, the waiting area, were like, "Oh, Gene, oh, Gene." So he was focused on them when he was going up there. And I said, "Hello, Mr. Simmons, Mr. Simmons, Mr. Simmons." I said, "I'm on my way to go hear you speak at Dan Kennedy's event." And then he finally turned around and he shook my hand. But otherwise, he was focused on what he was focused on.
Okay, so Gene Simmons during my picture grabbed my ass.
I believe that. I saw that happen with some others.
Yeah. I'm like, really? So I told him, look, Gene, I charge for that. And he laughed till he couldn't laugh anymore. He's like, you're my kind of gal. I'm like, get the fuck away from me, that book.
So my celebrity, I got it inadvertently through winning Frank Kern's bus back in 2011. And to this day, I still have it on my Facebook profile. And I still get people from Frank Kern's followers and everybody like, you won Frank Kern's bus? And actually, I was number 2. I was the number 2 winner. The number 1 winner didn't want it. He was a friend of Frank's. I was number 2. So there's a story there. But it's funny how now I'm associated with Frank Kern through that. And that has helped me tremendously. So
I associate with Guy Fieri.
Yeah. And I'm actually, Steve, this is a good segue. Steve and I were coming back from the Baltimore IBA conference. I think it was 2008 or 2010. I forget which one. But I got there first, and as I turned the corner, Guy Fieri was talking to a woman because he did a lot of filming in Baltimore. And I stopped and I said, "Hey, I know you." And I rudely interrupted the woman. I feel bad about it. And if I could make amends, I would. But I said, "Hey, would you take my picture?" And I gave her the camera, and he took a picture. And then we started talking, and he goes, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a marketing consultant in LA." And he goes, "You must be one righteous marketing dude." And so I said, "Hey, can you say that again?" And so I've used that in my marketing, one righteous marketing dude. But also while we were in Baltimore, Steve and I were waiting in the bar and we saw a guy with a Super Bowl ring on. And so Steve says, "That must be one of the accountants get that." Everything. It ended up being a referee who reffed the game that day in Baltimore. And so, Steve, you have used a lot of industry celebrities at your events. And some just well-known celebrities. Talk about how that enhanced your credibility, what it did for your events, etc.
So, like what everybody said here, tying yourself. We're not a celebrity. The viewers here, it's likely you're not a celebrity yourself. So the quickest way to become a celebrity is tie yourself to another celebrity. But it doesn't have to be the ones mentioned: Britney Spears, Guy Fieri, Gene Simmons. It can just be a celebrity in your industry. So I'll tell you, like how I did it. So we're here in the Dan Kennedy advisor world. Well, when I first started attending Dan Kennedy events, and Owen mentioned it, they called it the super conference, and 800 or 1,000 people in the room. When I first started attending, I was just one of 1,000 people in the room. I was absolutely nobody. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody wanted to know who I am. Nobody came up to me. Nobody anything, and I went home. When I became a Dan Kennedy independent certified, whatever they called us, advisor, and I started building my chapter, and I built it to the largest chapter of all the chapters around. Suddenly now, when I started attending Dan Kennedy events, I was a celebrity in the Dan Kennedy world. Nowhere else. Understand that when I went through the airport, unlike Gene Simmons or Mark Imperial, no women were coming all over me, that's for sure. Nobody's grabbing my butt. Nobody was doing any of that stuff. But when I walked in the room of the Dan Kennedy conference, suddenly people are coming up to me. I want to speak at your event. Can you please sell my thing? I was buying all kinds of programs and courses. Now they were like, can I give you my programs and you can review it? Can I give you my stuff for free? I'll give you half of the sales if you just send out an email to people and tell them about my thing. Like suddenly I was a celebrity. When I first heard of Dan Kennedy, it was somebody, I was working for a company. The marketing guy was doing Dan Kennedy marketing. I never heard of this Dan Kennedy guy, but he had on his desk this ridiculous bobblehead of a grown man in a suit sitting on a boat. I was like, what the heck is that all about? He was like, how do you think we're getting the phone to ring off the hook? That's this Dan Kennedy guy. Well, years later, lo and behold, there's Steve Sipress in a suit riding on a boat with a bobblehead. So that's how you do it, folks. You tie yourself to a celebrity in your niche. We're all marketing people. Dan Kennedy, the king of marketing to small business owners in the world. I tied myself to Dan Kennedy, became a celebrity in the Dan Kennedy world, and yeah, made a lot of money, had a lot of fun, got a lot of great connections, had a lot of friends from it. There's absolutely no downside. And I can tell you, as Craig mentioned in the intro to this episode, it beats the hell out of working or creating money, of trading sweat and tears for dollars. How about you just walk in the room and people come up and say, can I give you things? Can I give you money? Can I please love you? Will you please send an email for me? Like, wow, the transformation was amazing. And it's all because of the principles that we're talking about here.
That's awesome. Chuck,
Thank you, everybody, and good night. We're done.
Yeah, I know. I wish we could keep. This is going to be a short episode.
I got to go back
on all the experiences we've had with celebrities, and But Chuck, you have a report on your website called "How to Entertain Your Way to Profits." Talk about how being entertaining and memorable can help you be somebody.
Well, it's really important because life is so boring out there. If you let it be, wealth attraction is all about your behavior. You have to think about how this thing's all works and not be a wallflower. So when talking to clients, that's something that we give them. Give them. Kennedy used to talk about giving them a Disney experience, right? And that was it. So we all are public speakers based upon having chapter members from 40 or 50 to a couple of hundred people we're speaking to. And you need to be entertaining when you're a speaker besides giving them the goods. And you all probably relate is that people have a hard time being themselves. You ask them to give you an introduction, one of your best marketers in your group, and they take what you gave them, instead of even memorizing it, they read it in a monotone. My friend Chuck Trautman, in such a lame ass way, we've all had that. So I made a sizzle reel and had the background music to taking care of business and showed, my auto parts business. So there was, a big warehouse full of auto parts, in my golf business, actually on the golf course, smoking a cigar and had Rich James, who's one of Dan's private clients, used to be here in Phoenix in my chapter, and he gave me the intro for that. And so it made it fun. And so it was kind of like I could go running up to the stage, and then someone would say, well, here comes Sergeant Chuck, because that's the moniker I use to allow me to be authentic, because, a Marine sergeant, you're allowed to swear and say the F word and bullshit and all of that on stage, and they forgive you for it. So that was the reason I adopted that moniker, besides being legit. But the entertain yourself to profits is very important, and I try to encourage all of my clients to share their lives like we all should, and that lets them be entertaining. If they're a golfer or a ballet dancer or a race car driver or whatever, share that part of their life and they become more interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ben, people might be thinking, I can't declare myself an expert. I don't have all those alphabet behind my name. Talk about why that's true or not true and what to do about it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Craig. I've run into that lately. I have sons who are in college and like other friends and job changes, and that seems to be an excuse. Oh, well, I can't do that because I haven't. Well, the great thing is you can make yourself the expert, make yourself the celebrity just by really connecting with what is that thing that that thing that you're bringing to the world. You don't need anyone's stamp of approval to be you. And so the way I look at being the celebrity is taking what you already are and just finding a way to magnify that to the world. And then the way that I think just by putting it out there, that becomes a differentiator in your marketing. If someone is choosing between your product or service and someone else's or not doing anything, they're going to be drawn to people who are out there and authentic and putting it out there. It's really interesting talking about this topic that Dan Kennedy was writing about 20 years ago. That was before the age of the influencer, who the time before people were famous just for being famous. So Dan Kennedy once again was really ahead of it. And I think there might be some people who are, want to go the opposite direction in terms of like, oh, I don't want to be on Instagram. I don't want to be where your audience is and be yourself and promote yourself. And if you have trouble coming up with like self-promoting things, just say what other people say about you. Like you said, Craig Valine must be a badass marketer. What was that? Sure. Let people know. That's what I'm saying. You can quote me on that, Craig. You can put that on your website, and you don't need approval. Get your own magic wand and nominate yourself as the expert in your field, and just be the expert, be the celebrity.
Awesome. Joe, Mark had talked about publishing as one way of developing your authority or proving your authority. What are some other ways that you can get out there and beat somebody in the marketplace?
Well, besides the publishing, I think it's doing things like having your own podcast, like we're doing here. Things like offering an online meeting, you go over a topic or something like that. There's other things that you could do through social media, okay? But again, it's if you're out there talking, showing them what can be done, then you're going to get the interest in. But that helps with yourself as the celebrity, the person, the go-to. Publishing something and offering it to them to get tips and tricks and so forth is great. But also having that association, like we've been talking about, being associated with, Dan Kennedy, Bill Glazer. I even went and did a presentation in front of the Brian Tracy group in San Diego, and so get pictures, get a photo with him. So he knows who I am, and I went and did the presentation because I was helping his coaches in automating their marketing systems and so forth. But I think that's it. The PR side of it, getting the information out there. Just having a picture of Dan Kennedy on your website, that's great with you, but you need to get that info out there. You need other ways of doing it. Even networking, local networking, talking about what you're doing and, saying how you've done something. I actually had a meeting when I was doing the Dan Kennedy monthly meeting. This one was a little controversial in some ways. He was featured on TV locally. They were a doctor's office down on Cape Cod. And, now that, during the month of March, you have March Madness, right? Well, what was he promoting? Have your vasectomy and sit back and watch the March Madness. Okay. So recover while enjoying, the March Madness. And this thing just took off. So I brought him in to speak to the group about his whole marketing strategy and so forth, which was successful. And people were coming up to me and go, and they didn't see the TV piece on the news. They were like, how did you know this guy? What is he doing? You think you can help me? So it was really pretty funny. But he was a big hit, but I couldn't believe it. The best way to enjoy the March Madness is have a vasectomy. So, but
Very good.
So that's what it is. You bring in sometimes somebody local and you associate with others. So.
Craig, I got one more quick thing here. Everybody's talking about it, and the real magic for all of our listeners why they want to be celebrities, because it allows them to experience the magic of price elasticity. They can charge more money because they're a celebrity, and that should be very important to everyone.
Amen. Richelle, one last tip, 20 seconds or less.
Name yourself. Don't wait for somebody to name you. And the best way that you can determine if it's a good one, if people go, wait, who said that you could be that? Then you know that you hit the nail on the head.
Yep. Oh, and 20 seconds or less. Give a last tip.
The first things I did, even before Gene Simmons, to get celebrity worked really well. Number one is go to charity events that have celebrities. They're there to take pictures with you. And the second one is VIP tickets in Vegas. And one weekend I got video with George Wallace and Louis Anderson and Penn and Teller. In one weekend, it's like another $30 or something. Well, prices may vary.
Not anymore.
And you know what's interesting? Everybody thought I was a better artist with George Wallace and Louis Anderson clapping me on the back. It had nothing. My artwork was nowhere to be seen. But isn't that interesting? Well, it must be somebody. Yeah,
Very
I coughed
cool.
up to $30.
That's very cool. Just a side note, James Malinchak, when he competed against you, said that he purposely bought tickets when people came to Vegas. Michael Jordan, one of the pictures he got, just to get that picture. So.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Steve, final tip, 20 seconds.
Well, just starting out, one way you can become a celebrity in your niche, in your area, is to interview leaders in your industry. So if you're a plumber and you're thinking, celebrity, Gene Simmons, what are you talking about? Well, interview other plumbers in other cities, and you become an expert in plumbing. So the people in your market say, well, he must be the expert. He knows all the top plumbers. He must be a top plumber.
Awesome. Mark, final tip, 20 seconds.
Hey, link to what Steve just shared. If you want to do that, a quick way to get a book done is interview folks in that industry for a collaborative book and put yourself in the middle of it. So I have the expression, hey, give them something to talk about. That's why I always say, and I might be biased, but get your book done first, because now this is going to lead to everything else. It'll give the media something to talk about. It'll give event promoters something to talk about, and it'll get you on the stage because you have something to talk about.
Very cool. Dan, 20 seconds or less, last tip.
Somebody mentioned earlier, like I said before, a lot of people don't see themselves as celebrity. Get a little help. I had somebody do a sizzle reel for me one time, and he plucked out all kinds of things for me that a lot of people thought were really cool and highlighted those. And so if you can't see it for yourself, get some help. And a lot of times people can see where you might be a celebrity where you don't.
Awesome. Ben, 20 seconds or less, last tip.
Yeah, as someone as myself who typically doesn't put myself front and center, well, today I'm front and like bottom right, I guess, on this screen. So what I did was I found people who were out there and big personalities. Believe it or not, there are some in this program, and put yourself alongside of them and go along for the ride in what they're doing. We all did it as IBAs. We're doing it in this podcast. That's a great tip for someone who maybe just needs that little extra nudge, like me.
Yeah. Joe, final tip, 20 seconds or less.
Basically, associating, like everybody's talking about, people in the niche industry, or and if you do get the opportunities, like Owen says, to meet a celebrity and get your picture taken, that's going to help. I mean, that happened with me with Barbara Crocker. People are like, "Oh, Shark Tank," you met her, you know her, So again, it's all these things that will associate you and help you with being a celebrity. But again, the biggest thing is getting your word out there and being consistent as to what your message is.
Awesome. My last tip would say, don't be afraid to ask. I was at an event where Robert Forster from Jackie Brown, he had just kind of come back from his long time off from acting, and Jackie Brown was a hit that made him a sensation. And I just said, would you come speak to my group? And he said, yeah, call my daughter. My daughter handles that. So don't be afraid to ask for, number one, the picture, but if you want them to come and speak to a group, don't be afraid for that. So this topic could go on forever, and there were so many questions I didn't ask, but it was really, really good nonetheless. So thank you very much, all of my expert panel, my independent business advisors, friends, peers. And so thank you for listening and watching to the most incredible marketing show ever. We meet every Thursday, so you can hear a new episode. And we have a free gift from everybody here on the panel at mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. That's mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. We'll see you next Thursday. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining us this week on The Most Incredible Marketing Show Ever. New episodes are available every week on Thursdays. To receive a free gift pack from our expert panelists and get access to show notes from previous episodes, be sure to visit our website, www.mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell up in the right-hand corner to be notified of future episodes so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you clicking the like button and leaving a comment on what big aha you got during the show. That's it for today's episode. See you next week.